Woohoo! Hi, welcome to the Hispanic Public Relations Association National Google Hangout, sorry, on the topic of integration, public relations and marketing integration. As some of you know, it's a balancing act. It really is, and when it's done right, it can help move a brand forward. If it's done wrong, it could end up in disintegration. Hi, my name is Stephen Chavez, and I'm principal of Chavez Marketing and Communications, also publisher and editor of Latino Foodie. I'm serving as the 2014 National President for the Hispanic Public Relations Association. Now in the 7th year, I want to talk a little bit about some housekeeping things with the organization. We're in our 7th year with our HPRA National Bravo Awards. Now these are the most prestigious awards in Hispanic public relations. They're the top accolades. I call them the Oscars for Hispanic PR. The early entry deadline is happening at the end of next week. So make sure you go to our website, which is HPRA-USA.org /Bravo-Awards, and you'll find all the information you need there. So also I want you to mark your calendar, for the Bravo Awards will be presented in Los Angeles this year at the LA Chapter's annual scholarship dinner. It's going to be on Thursday, October 9th, at the gorgeous The Mile Restaurant in Los Angeles. So make sure you mark your calendar for that. I'm excited about these Google Hangouts. I think it's a great way for our organization to continue to evolve and offer you relevant content that's going to bring insights and knowledge into our industry. This is an opportunity for us to do things on a national perspective to reach people out in Dallas and Denver and Miami and New York and all the other places where we have HPRA members. Our organization continues to grow and evolve. We've got strong chapters in Los Angeles, Miami, New York, new ones being developed in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. And just heard recently from Houston, they're wanting to start a chapter out there in Texas. So a lot of exciting things happening with HPRA, and glad to be part of it. Now, for those of you who've been part of Google Hangouts before, you know it's a wonderful platform, but you also know that things can kind of happen when they happen. So I just ask that you remain flexible and understanding and patient. We're going to try to make this a very relaxed and informal platform and program. And so just enjoy it and know that you can follow us also on Twitter. Let me give you the hashtag. PR integration. One more time, hashtag PR integration, and you can ask our panelists questions right there on Twitter. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our distinguished panel. Once I introduce them, if you can go ahead and give us a little bit more of your background, but more importantly as well, so people can start following you, give us your Twitter handle or any other social media platforms you'd like to share for people to get to know you a little bit better or your organizations. And so first up, we've got Horacio Gavilan. He is the Executive Director for AHAA, the Voice of Hispanic Marketing. So Horacio, a couple minutes on who you are and
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. We'd love to collaborate with HPRA, and this is a great tool, so we appreciate the invitation of having us here today. AHAA, you know, we are the Voice of Hispanic Marketing. We are, our purpose is to twofold. Number one is to help corporate America understand the value of the Hispanic market and the Hispanic consumer, and ultimately bring more dollars to our space. So we collaborate to ensure that we help educate corporate America about the industry. I've been the executive director of for many years, and we are, like I said, we're happy with our partnership with the HPRA. Before I forget, our hashtag is AHAA. And I know we have a lot of activity there, so I look forward to your question. And again, Stephen, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. And next we have up on our panel is Ana Ruedaquintero. She is the marketing manager with VME Media. Welcome, Ana.
Thank you so much for the invitation. How are you doing, everybody? My name is Ana Ruedaquintero. I'm currently the marketing manager of VME Media Inc., which has 2 channels. Hispanic channels, all in Spanish, 24/7. One is Veme TV, as in Watch Me in English, and the other one is Veme Kids. We have been created with the model of PBS, making sure that we have entertainment, education, but no novellas, no soap opera, because we want to empower our community and inspire them to be better. And we think this is the right way for us. Also, I'm the HPRA Miami chapter secretary, and I have been happy to be part of this organization since January, and I'm glad to be here. And if you'd like to know more about Veme TV, you can follow us with our Twitter handle is at VMETV, hashtag Veme TV.
And do you have a personal Twitter handle?
My personal Twitter handle is Ana, and like my last name, Rueda Q, all together.
Excellent. Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And up next on our panel is the distinguished Marcus Jiménez, who is the principal with Huemanitas, marketing agency out of Denver, Colorado. Welcome.
Hey, Stephen. Thanks for the invitation, for coming out. So essentially, just like Stephen described, I'm the principal and founder of Humanitas, which is really a cultural branding firm. What we focus on is driving culturally intelligent marketing solutions for a lot of our clients, with a mixed bag of both local and small clients, as well as ones more on the national stage. I spent about the better half of 20 years in the marketing and advertising space, working in the Hispanic, starting out in the Hispanic market, making transitions over to the general market stage, with more than half of that time in the CPG and shopper marketing space, and building the discipline for organizations like the Integer Group, as well as Tracy Locke, and for Omnicom. And that's basically the net of the story of where I am. If the room goes dark, everyone, apologies. We're in a LEED certified building, so I've got to wave my arm. No, I'm not going crazy. I'm just waving my arm for the light switch behind me.
No problem. And I'd also like to, at this time, take a little time to acknowledge two people that really helped put together today's program, and that is our HPRA Miami president, Daisy Cabrera, as well as our national board member, Yvonne Lorie, who will hopefully be joining us shortly on the panel. Again, technological issues. So let's go ahead and get started. So from your perspective, what does integration of marketing and PR really mean for you? Let's start with Horacio.
Well, you see, from our time, integration is really, how do you bring all the different disciplines in an organized, in a way in which they are part of the process. I think more and more, our clients are looking for ensuring that there is integration in the way we approach our plans. So I think it's all about, make sure that all the disciplines are part of the process. It's not like, you develop a strategy and then you bring, your account planner, or you bring your PR person. So it's from the start, having that cohesiveness of a team working together, coming up with a strategy.
Okay, great. Marcus, you want to add anything to that? What do you see? How do you define it?
I think for us, we've looked at, I think just like Horacio was mentioning, the idea of integration and having that seat at the table much earlier on in the strategic part of the process building component. I think most often than not, I think unfortunately PR and other marketing efforts tend to get bucketed into the tactical executional stages, which is much further downstream in the process. Mm-hmm. And I think a big key element is looking at, I think the perspective of what PR can provide is immense success. They can help drive the success of a campaign if you can look at it beyond just managing or leveraging, PEO media, right? So whether it's paid, earned, or owned, you have to look broader beyond the application, because really PR and marketing efforts can really breathe life into a brand to drive consumer engagement, as opposed to the tactical delivery of how you're going to execute a campaign. So I think it takes a moment to reframe the position of what it can provide, what success, how do you define that success, and where do you seat that at the strategic table versus at the executional end. So I think that's a big key component that's missing today.
Some good points. Anna, from a client's perspective, working in-house, how do you see people defining marketing integration?
The reality is that in my specific example, as a TV station needing of, we don't have a PR in-house. We use Balsera PR in Miami to do our efforts to spread our word. It has been tremendously important for us as a marketing department to be able to work with them very closely, not only notifying them of anything that is coming out in the station that is new or any new product that we want to put out for our consumers, but also the fact that we cannot stand alone.
Right.
We have to always participate together, because at the end of the day, I couldn't be as successful as we're trying to be without their help, and they couldn't be doing their campaigns correctly if I would provide them information that they need from me.
Right.
Hello.
And I see we've got Yvonne. Welcome.
Hi everybody.
And Yvonne, we've just gone through introductions, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name is Yvonne Lorie. I am the president of Sway Public Relations. It's a wholly owned subdivision of MGSCOMM, which was started as an advertising agency and has evolved into really a complete integrated mix of services. So, you know, we work a lot in the integration of marketing and advertising and public relations and social.
Well, welcome aboard. And are there any hashtags or handles you want to give us that we should be following to get
Yes,
you and the organization as well?
Yeah, so my Twitter, which is Yvonne M. Laurier, and our company Twitter, MGSCOMM, MGSCOMM.
Okay, great. And just a reminder to our audience that you can follow us on Twitter at the hashtag PR Integration. HPRA organization's handle is at HPRA-USA, and ask your questions of our panelists. We have someone monitoring, and we will incorporate your questions into this program today. Let's move on to the next question, and that's really how do brands benefit from the cross-functional integration of marketing and PR efforts? Why should we integrate? Let's take it, Marcus.
I feel that what you can do, just like I was mentioning previously, at putting it at the strategic table, it allows you to have true consumer engagement modeling versus taking an approach of saying, hey, we're just going to execute a press release on this. We're going to do some outreach to a little bit of social content that'll come out. And rather than treating it tactically, I think if you can look at embedding and integrating public relations as a key core component of how you build your brand messaging and how that really serves as an overarching platform for the brand campaign, I think only when you're able to do that, which can only really be done at the strategic end of the table, can you get true consumer engagement that goes through the line for the brand. At the end of the day, most brands, right, are typically, and again, this is speaking at it from a CPG, perspective, but most brands are brands that have to be traded at a register. It has to be converted to something. And I think that, rather than looking at public relations specifically as that tactical deployment of how you make good with the community or how you make good with consumer advocacy groups or et cetera and go down the line, I think that the more that you can engage and the more that you can build holistic platforming is only when you can get to the true place of where you can drive consumer engagement that goes through the line and only PR and marketing can do things, I think, after spending so many years in advertising and branding and making the transition over to shopper marketing and the marketing space, it's really there that the brand truly comes to life in the field. Advertising can only go so far. It can't close the gap to the register. That's really where PR and marketing can fit. But I think you get more integration and more holistic programming when it's done at the strategic end of the table. So. Okay,
great. Anyone else want to add anything to why brands should move into integration?
I absolutely agree with Marcus, but I think we are integrating because we're forced to integrate. I mean, I think brands are making it clear that you must have an integrated approach. Budgets are tough. Budgets are tight, so I think at the end of the day, the clients, the brands are demanding a better integration. So, that's unfortunately that's that's how things change. Is where we get a little reinforcement, a little push on how to move on something. But I think the biggest factors are certainly budgets and then technology. I think technologies are really being what has driven this integration craze, that you want to call it, or this push for integration. Because it's before we said, well, we can't really do it because technology or this, we don't have that. Now all those barriers are gone. So I think our ability to give excuses, it's not there anymore. So
right, I think it's sort of leveled the playing field for a lot of the agencies.
Absolutely.
Of what they can offer. Anna, anything else to add?
Yes. I would like to say, from the point of view of a TV station that has nationally reach, it's difficult for us just to put out promotions in any sponsored ads or anything like that, and not reaching specifically the niche or the specific areas that we can, that we are in the country. When PR, we have been able to do these in targeted ways that we can put out the same ad throughout the whole country, but at the same time, with the PR efforts, we can make a niche and tailor it to each specific region that we need to reach specifically. So at the end of the day, PR and marketing integration, as Horacio was doing, has been forced to happen, but I think it's a wonderful thing because very excellent results have come out of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think I think the number of successful case studies, I think it just reinforces that. I mean, maybe 5-10 years ago there weren't that much out there in terms of case studies. I think anybody will be hard pressed to argue against it.
Right.
When it's done right, we have plenty of evidence that it works, and it works well.
Right. So, Yvonne?
Yes, if I could just jump in from an agency perspective, it's true. I think that we've been forced in a good way, and it gives us more reasons to talk and tell the brand stories. Consumers have a lot of choices in terms of what they consume. They're consuming different media simultaneously at times, and the one thing I want to kind of bring home as overseeing a PR agency is that when we're developing our PR messaging, that it's important that it comes as part of the overall brand message, but we do have to tailor those in a way that's going to be appealing to the media and to the consumers.
Absolutely.
When we look at social. So it's a different crafting of messaging. So the same material, it's very important that PR is part of the planning from the beginning, because something that might work in the advertising sphere may not be something you can take to the PR front. So that the two work together, so that at the very beginning, the principal foundation has also the PR components to it, so that we can do that 360 full communication. It's a different audience we're reaching the same audience, but through different channels. So, understand that PR is earned, and we need to rely on media and people to carry our story for us.
I do think that there's also one additional point that I think Horacio really brought up, which was the piece on digital and how it's not only democratized or leveled the playing field, but it's also blurred the lines.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Where agencies it's becoming, so we've been forced, and I think it's a good enforcement that clients
That's a good one. I agree.
integration. However, at the same time, the trade-off has been that we've now, the lines are completely blurred. Where one agency ends and the next agency hands off and picks up has become even more and increasingly more difficult to define. Well, and therein lies greater challenges, right?
Absolutely, and I think that the clients care less and less. They're kind of, you figure it out. So I think that's all, definitions or where things start, when things ended. Like you said, I completely been blurred. So clients don't want to hear about it. Clients want you to figure out.
So we have a question from Twitter asking us about what are some of the fears that agencies have about entering into an agreement of being part of an integrated team. What are some of the fears that agencies have?
Getting paid.
When you're the check and who pays who.
Exactly. So we've been asked by many clients to form different types of partnerships. On some clients, we serve as a lead agency that will lead the directive of other agencies and other partners as part of the and then somebody's really laughing somewhere.
Having a party somewhere, yeah.
And so, but then we've also been asked to sub and essentially sub-C under a larger general market type house. And the one thing that I pride myself on doing is that I've learned what not to do. And I try to take that into the relationships where we're able to drive a lot of the brand stewardship and leadership for clients. And so I think that for us, in the beginning, what was really difficult and what we feared the most was, you know, how much of our voice is actually going to be, can stand up in the room. And when you realize that partnerships have to work hand in hand, and because at the end of the day, the client suffers. And so you want to make sure, our biggest fear was that, will our best work come through that relationship? And we've now have gone through some life experiences that teaches us when to get into the right relationship and when not to. And I think sometimes it's better that you pass up that moment if you don't feel that you're going to be able to deliver your agency's best work. Because at the end of the day, if you don't deliver it and your client doesn't succeed, you're getting fired anyway.
Right.
So you may as well say no to that business than taking it on and risk.
Right.
So
I love
that's our perspective.
And Marcus, I think we can learn a lot from all of you actually on the panel. I'd love to hear from each of you 3 things you should not do when you're part of a marketing integration team. Anna, you want to start off? What are 3 things you think you should not do?
Well, first thing is make sure that always there is communication. If you don't respond an email, you're dying. You know, you have to be always in constant communication. And just say, oh, I responded later. Because if you do it later, you're going to forget, you're going to get busy from the point of view if you have too many things going on. That is a big no-no. Another thing that you should not do when you're integrating is being selfish with the information that needs to be passed on. If a client is telling you X, Y, and Z, and you need to pass it on to your PR team, you should not just not share it, because you never know how can they spin it around and work together as a team to make the campaign a success. And definitely is just, for me, is communication. You have to have communication. Not communicate is the biggest pitfall.
Okay. Horacio, what are some tips for agencies?
Don't fire your client trying to convince them why it's not going to work. I think clients know better. I think brands know better, and I think, like we were saying before, there's plenty out there. But I still will find sometimes, you know, just because a model might not apply to it, or we just try to convince the client, no, this is not the way to do it. And the other one, I think it's just to expand on the whole communication point is, you know, don't try the good old bait and switch. You know, don't get the perception that you really have created a team of integration, and then when it's time to, you get it, you get the account, you get it, and so, well, you know what, I told you we're going to do that, but really we're going to be doing that. That happens more often than we care to, and at the end of the day, what that means is, you know, you're probably going to fail. So I think it's important to ensure that, you know, how you sold it to the client, you deliver it to the client.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, as a small PR agency, that happens a lot. I'll be taken into
a
here
pitch,
you are. Here's our. And all of a sudden, you hear from the lead agency, general market agency, saying, "Oh, well, we've hired a Hispanic person. They're going to go ahead and take care of it."
Yeah. So, and absolutely. I mean, that's and you understand it, and that happens a lot. And I think that is important that we do whatever we can to avoid that, because at the end of the day, we're really not then doing our fiduciary responsibility toward the clients. You know, we're not being fully transparent.
Right. Okay. Marcus, you led this off. So your 3 things not to do.
I think what not to do is, I completely and utterly agree with what Horacio was saying, in that you don't want to fight the tide. I don't think that you don't want to, because at the end of the day, it's about collaboration. If you can't collaborate in this business, you shouldn't be in it. So that's number 1. But I also feel that you should also walk into situations where understanding that maybe the person on the other side bringing you into this relationship may not have that same level of experience that you might expect. They may be new to this game as well. And I think that there's a sense of fairness that has to come into things. You always want to go into situations with eyes wide open and have that openness to have that relationship to bring transparency to that collaboration. Because if you don't have that ability to be able to have that frank conversation or that upfront one where you can put things on the table in pursuit of better work and have that agreement at the other end of the table, then the relationship may not be kicking off on a good point to begin with. So I would really recommend that you have a level of openness and fairness that you go into it. Don't go into it closed-minded thinking that we're going to own this piece and do this thing.
Yvonne.
So I'm hearing a bit of a common theme, and I don't want to be repetitive, but at our agency we work many times we have clients that are integrated here at our agency, or they're integrated through other agency partners that we work with. And you know, I think the main thing, I know our clients really appreciate when these agencies work together. And I'll give an example. We've been working with Hyundai Motor America on the PR side for almost 15 years now, and we've counterparted with the General Market PR agency, with the Hispanic advertising agency, and really at the end of the day, it's everybody coming together for the benefit of the brand, and then we all benefit.
Exactly.
I also think that I think all of us in our industry are here for communication solutions. So it's not about what we're doing, what this agent's going to do, what that agent's going to do. It's what is the client and the brand objective, and then you take it from there. Because is the objective, there's a business objective all the time, but is there a more immediate need for an image building campaign where PR can come in, or is there more of a need for awareness where advertising comes in, or is there more awareness to move product where more promotional elements come in? So I think it goes really back to the brand, and to a degree the brands have to be the ones to help us determine this, so that the agencies can then put forth their best work and deliver based on what their best work is. So
right. I'm curious, so you are part of an integrated team for a brand, and someone's not playing nice in the sandbox. There's another agency who it just doesn't seem like they are communicating all the things you had talked about. What advice would you give to agency folks out there on how to handle those situations?
I'm going to just keep talking. But I think that, back to what I was saying, I think that they're going to set themselves up. They're going to set themselves up because the clients appreciate agencies that can play nice together, because these clients have chosen the agencies that they believe are the best in what they do. And
so do you just let it play out and hope the client sees it, or do you bring it up to the client?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to not be in that situation, because we work with really great clients, I can happily say. I think depending on how it would get it would make sense. But many times the client identifies it themselves, is what I've seen also. The client.
Anyone else?
I would like to say in VEME we have a current client. Their name is Better Home and Gardens, and they also, because they're non-speaking Spanish speakers, they were relying on their own marketing agency. So we had a little bit of an issue with them, because they felt that we were taking up on their project, therefore they were losing the opportunity to make more money because we were helping. So what we had to do with them is pretty much communicate in a one-to-one on every day with the client, and them going back and forth with what they needed, what they want. Therefore, at the end of the day, we worked it out fine, but it was a little bit of a rough situation because there was some kind of jealousy between there. So we just communicated with the client, make sure they knew our part. We were honest with them all the time, and also we asked them their feedback every time when we turned in something, so they make sure they were on the same page, not only the client but the other marketing agency as well. Okay,
great. Anything else, Horacio?
No, I think like you said, it's good to hear that we all agree there is a consistent agreement in terms of how as important it is what to do it is obviously not to do. So I'm glad to hear that we're all in agreement.
Great. And I'd love to hear, we talked about the crossover, and I think Marcus, you touched a little bit about it, that whether ideas are coming from digital agencies, traditional advertising agency, the media buying agency, or the PR agency, or the events marketing agency. It's the idea that matters. But how are some of these? What are you seeing in terms of similarities of what agencies are offering today to a client? Can you just give some examples?
Yeah, I think that I feel like there's the entire agency business is really in, I like to call it an inflection point. We're sort of reflecting, we're at the reflecting pond, thinking about what the future is going to hold for us. And I think that we've sort of lost a bit of our way. I think from an industry standpoint, not individual agencies, but I think overall, I think agencies have lost their way a little bit. If you look at, we were at one point the epicenter of where creativity and innovation occurred. And that's no longer the case. Digital and technology now own it. And so what we're now having to do is we're being confronted with not only from the sourcing of talent and where we're going to get new talent. We're fighting against entrepreneurial spirits of people who don't want to work for an agency when they can do it on their own. And at the same time, we're also confronted with client demands saying, hey, we need more integration, we need more services, we need more, we need more. And I think what you're finding is you've got larger agencies that are looking to shore up the different patches of business because they're losing revenue off of bigger areas like media and media, planning and buying and go down the line. So now they're just trying to shore up business. Hence, you have the new challenge is total market. And every general market agency hiring the next Hispanic or African American guy and seeing that they're the expert in the building. And they're in a side conversation telling a client that they could build the whole division for them, or that they don't need to be spending on that other Hispanic agency or African American agency because I can build it for you. So I think you've got larger houses trying to shore up areas of business and opportunity that they see at the table that they're trying to do, while at the same time you've got those individuals that worked at those shops realizing that their best work isn't getting done, it's not getting produced. So they're leaving to create their own smaller niche sort of opportunity. So that's why you see the rise of things like the event marketing group, and all they want to do is sampling program. Or you'll see the smaller niche group that does social media and community management, and that's all that they want to do. They want to be those experts in that field. So I think it's a fraying of where the industry is going. Digital is driving a lot of that. Tech is driving that. But I think more than anything, you're seeing this, it's a race. It's a race to protect revenue, to protect businesses that they have and continue growth, especially when you look at it from a holding company standpoint. But then when you look at it on the independent side, it's incredibly optimistic. It's an open world. And so it's really amazing. And having the experience and not only, and really the privilege to be able to experience both like that is immensely, it's been immensely rewarding. And we look at the future with optimism, being a small independent. And we actually partner with a lot of larger houses that do things, that come in, that want us to come in and just do the strategic planning, insight development, and platform development that we do, that we're experts at. And that's how we've built our group to be very specific, very niche for that discipline versus trying to be the shop that does it all.
Right.
I think those days are numbered for a lot of shops. Yeah, they're not. It's very difficult to maintain that.
And I think it's I mean, we're certainly, the whole advertising industry, it's changing. I mean, it's not only unique to our space. The way they're compensated, the way they're structured. I don't think the industry has seen change like this ever. And then you have all these other forces. You have the changes in demographic. You have technology, all converging at once. So I believe that this change is going to continue to accelerate. Total market. You mentioned total market. I think we as AHAA, we see total market as an incredible opportunity. I think when it's done right, and it's important, what it is, how to do it right, is as important as what not to do. And actually, we have partnered with the AHAA to come up with a definition of what total market is. One in which, when necessary, our agencies are at the table. They're the lead agency. I think, to your point, Marcus, you're seeing some of the largest holding companies come in and say, well, yeah, we can build this for you. I equate that to the old, buying to something that you quite don't know. We'll trust us and we'll put it together for you. But I think we look at total market as an incredible opportunity. I think we have opened the door to be at the grown-up table. We are the opportunity to lead, and I think brands are becoming to realize that when total market is done right, it might be like your African American or your Hispanic agency is the lead. That change is starting, and it's going to be a process. But like you said, Marcus, I think there's some incredible opportunities for a marketplace right now. What we need to ensure is that we have first of all, that when we talk about total market, we're all talking about the same thing. We're finding out that people define it differently. And I'm going to do a little plug for AHAA here. We're about to release a research study on total market ROI. I think it's coming out in September. At the end of September, we're going to unveil it at the upcoming ANA Multicultural Conference. But I think what you're going to see there is exactly what I'm saying is when it's done right, and when you bring the right players to the table, total market could be a great bonanza to our industry, and would really allow us to lead when necessary. I mean, it might not apply to every brand, it might not apply to every client, but there's some in which Hispanic or African American can and should be the lead.
Great. I'm going to take a question from Twitter again. So we've got Ron Del Rio at RDR1050. In building a media plan, do you like to start with social media or traditional media?
I think depends who you ask.
Anna, you want to take this?
Yes, I do. It's funny because I work in a very traditional television station, which, as I said before, is a PBS station model. So with that being said, we're very traditional, but we understand the process that not everything is functioning. I'm watching TV only. Many people is watching TV, so looking at Twitter and looking at the computer at the same time where everything is happening. So we have had to take the standpoint to still go for the traditional route. In our case, traditional route would be creating promotions, creating billboards, and promoting the show prior it starts. But also, we necessarily had to have a team that develops social media around what we're trying to promote, no matter what. And also, my CEO of the company, he's extremely social media driven. So he's very into Twitter, he's very into Facebook, and he always looks for us to create new ways to engage the audience through that. The opposite side of this is that most of our audience, as we have learned, they're not necessarily the social media people, because we have first-generation Hispanics that come here just to work. So we always have to balance it, that we have to give them a good amount of pressure to the traditional, but also to engage those second and third generation Hispanics that still want to watch television in Spanish. So we have to always balance it, because our audience specifically is not 100% the same all throughout.
Right. Okay, anyone else want to add anything?
Well, I mean, I think it depends. And I think, again, that is new. It is that new world, and I think we'll need to be ready. And the agencies who get that will understand that sometimes, PR might be the lead. Some other times it might not. So I think my answer will be depends. And I think that is part of that new way of thinking, is that we cannot always look at the traditional way, the traditional approach, and trying to make it work in 2014. I think the agencies who do it right are the ones who are going to be successful. But I think, again, having that flexibility to be able to understand that sometimes it's PR, sometimes it might not, sometimes it be a combination. But I think, again, that's part of that ongoing change that we're going to see in terms of structures and in terms of how we approach the business.
Okay. We've got another question from Amelia Folks at SF_Amelia Folks from our Google Plus page. Here's the question. What do you do when marketing takes over a campaign because of the, I guess she has money signs, money muscle versus earned work that PR delivers? So what do you do when marketing takes over a campaign because of their money muscle versus the earned work that PR delivers? I would say this would be an Yvonne question, but I don't think we have her online anymore.
I think we might have lost her.
We may have lost her. Anyone want to take this? Are you able to answer this?
Well, in our case, you know, like we were mentioning at the beginning, budgets in our case has been shrinking like in most companies. So our muscle necessarily for marketing has to be always leveraged correctly with the PR efforts that we have done. And we have discovered over the time that even though marketing efforts are very important and very necessary to be able to position the brand accordingly, at the same time, when we have employed the good PR tactics and strategies, they have tremendously beneficiated the campaign that we're trying to accomplish at the moment. So at the end of the day, if I believe that something is overcoming the PR, I say we, meaning a little bit slash PR marketing, we have to always remember that not everything can be bought and put in people's faces. It has to be also organically be given so they can take it as it is and accept it on their own. Because if you just only push, people is just gonna like, you know, it's too much in my face. It has to be also PR driven and organically given to the audience.
Okay. Anyone else want to take that or move on to the next question? So we've got a question from at PR Delia Lopez. The question is, how will total market affect Hispanic PR agencies and practitioners? So you talked a little bit about this, Horacio, before, the idea of total market, but how is this, you know, brands wanting to enter into this total market approach, what's the impact or the fallout for Latino agencies?
Well, I mean, we all impacted. I think anybody who's in the business impacted. I think, like I was saying before, I think to us, we see it as an incredible opportunity. I think, again, it's something that is different. So I think as much as we might be struggling with it, I think brands are struggling with it. And that's one of the reasons we partnered with the AHAA, because the first thing that we found out is even the definition of total market was dependent on who you were asking. So we thought that the first thing we needed to do is define what total market is, and more importantly, what total market is not. Because a lot of people are defining it, and we're seeing that the definition is not quite correct. It's a definition that is trying to justify something that they're doing, so they can call it total market. So the first thing that we need to do.
Can you define it for our audience today?
Wow. Well, let me do this.
In one sentence or less.
Let me do this. Actually, you will be seeing AHAA is putting out
another shameless
definition.
plug.
I know, but it just, and the reason is, well, total market is really at the forefront of what we do. I mean, we're spending a lot of our energies on total market right now because we understand how we will profoundly change our market, and if we are not here to define it, someone else will for us. And you know what happened when somebody else defines for you. It's not a definition that we think is going to be fair to our marketplace. So it's a great opportunity, but it's at risk. And we're trying to help define what total market needs to be. So with that said, and the only reason is we are about to point out, we're all about to release that definition of what total market is not. And since we have so many partners on this, I don't want to, in fairness to them all, but look out for the first week of September. There's going to be a big press release, announcing, the collaboration and the outcome of that collaboration with DNA and defining what total market is, and that will be followed by some white papers. Because also we understand that one definition of total market doesn't apply to everybody, and that's also very important to understand. So we're actually coming with different levels, you want to call it, of defining what total market is, because not all the brands are in the same place. So stay tuned. You're going to hear a lot more about total market next couple weeks.
Horacio. All right, so let's move on to a question we can't answer then. I'd love to hear from all of you examples of companies that are doing it right, and why are they doing it right? What have you seen out there, whether it's your own clients, preferably, or maybe not your clients, but some of the companies out there that you've worked with or have seen, you know what, they get it. They actually know what they're talking about, and they do it well. Marcus, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think there's, to speak on a client that we don't have, first off, just so that way there's a little bit of fairness, I think, I think that when you look at how Beats is a really good example of how they took to market through technology. They tried. They when they first launched, it was launching through an influencer type of strategy that they had deployed. So they were looking at seeding the technology with a lot of the influencers in key music spaces. And a lot of that was driven through experiential, a lot of it was driven through events that ultimately eventually led to the big spot, right, of Dr. Dre coming into the whole moment where he was creating the headphones, and then therein lies the beginning of Beats. But to go from where they started to the valuation and the purchase of Apple is probably one of the fastest success stories that I think in recent memory that you can look at. It's unlike the app development space of like a WhatsApp or something like that in social media. This is purely a product that was created, that was manufactured, that was brought to market, that was then marketed, leveraged, right, and seeded in the right way with the right mix to be able to get the company to the level of success that it's reached and the level of market penetration and brand awareness. And so enough that it reshaped and upended the entire industry. Now you have the leader, the market leader who was once Bose, now looking at Beats as now the new sort of influential leader. And they're now creating a whole line of products that mimic what Beats has been delivering since day one. So I think if you're looking at a case study of someone, and I don't work on that marketing, but I think it was phenomenal in terms of how they were able to launch, to go from product development, R&D, all the way to market valuation and acquisition of Apple's purchase. I thought it was phenomenal how fast they were able to do it and how well they were able to do it. Right. With regards to clients that we've worked with in the past, PepsiCo is one of our clients. We're one of 60 agencies that can be very difficult. 60. 60. Yeah, wow. 60. And we're one of the agencies of record for them that have helped them over the last 5-6 years in the development of cultural branding. And they've done a phenomenal job of understanding, and this is going to touch on Horacio's point, of how they were able to look at cultural branding as the epicenter, where they didn't look at it as an agency solution first. They looked at it as an internal operational solution that needed to happen first in order for them to be able to expand on that and execute in the marketplace. They were doing it tactically, and they realized that they needed to reshuffle the system internally in order for them to effectively do it on the outside. But of all of the clients that I've worked with in the past and all of the Fortune 500s that we've worked with, it's a small brand in California that is perhaps doing it the best with the least money. And I think effectiveness really, I think in your last question about the opportunity and the challenges with Hispanic agencies, I think part of this, in terms of finding success with the right kind of integration, has to do with scale. I think sometimes the more players you get in the room, the more difficult the solution becomes, the more gray who leads, who's doing what, who's getting paid for what. Everybody wants to carve up the carcass on the table, right, and get their fair share. I think that the smaller the client, there's a limited amount to share, and I think you work on brands like that because it really is about the work, because it's not so much about the budget. And so our client in Del Real Foods in California has done an exceptional job of going through the process of identifying their partners. We serve as the lead agency of record for them and bring in the respective partners that can believe in the mission of the brand. And we really hold ourselves accountable as their lead agency to identify those partners for them that can really come to the table with transparency, come to the table in true collaboration, because it really is going to be about that work. They're not carving out it's not like a PepsiCo national media budget. It's a very small, limited budget in California. So if you're going to come on, you got to do it for the work. It's the love of the work and the love of the brand. And I think that has proven immensely successful with them, in that in just 1 year, we were able to get them from a 17-point share of brand awareness, unaided awareness in California, to over 26%, with less than $300,000 in media spending in a California market. So
one housekeeping. Anna, can you mute your? I think we're getting feedback from your.
There we go.
Okay. when you brought up the fact that there are 60 agencies working with PepsiCo, it just what I keep thinking about is from a client perspective, how do you manage? I mean, before you had one agency that sort of handled everything. Now we've got 5, 6, 7 agencies with their niche experience and talents that they're bringing to the table. From a client perspective, do you have any tips on how they should and could manage all of that? And is it a different mindset? Any experience with that?
It really is. I think that we found that in a case like a PepsiCo or like a Miller Coors or a Procter & Gamble, there's so many teams. You have 10 to 20 person teams working on a particular brand. And so it gets down to the tactical division of duties, right? And who is exactly doing what. We found success at the table because we've been able to not only just provide excellent, from a CRM standpoint, right? Excellent customer relationship management, and really drive that relationship end. But we found it because we're small, nimble, and are able to innovate. I can innovate. Our teams here can innovate faster than a larger shop can do. I can deliver faster, and I can deliver more on the ground, more relevant creativity than a lot of the larger shops can do, because it just has to do with they're just bigger systems, bigger processes, longer timelines. And so we found our niche in working, with the PepsiCo and thriving with them over the last 5, 6 years, simply because we have become their de facto experts in key missions. And what we found is that clients like that ability to have an expert that can do something very specific for them and bring in that partner for that task, as opposed to taking on the larger piece of business. Now, we've had to manage through that because one thing leads to another, right? You do something well here, they want you to do it there, and managing through all of that can be very difficult. However, I think that for clients, the more that you can get people to, I think what Ana was saying before about communication, the idea of fluid and open, redundant communication is critical on the larger you go within the body of the organization, because there's a lot of checkoffs, a lot of gate checks that you have to go through. And I think for agencies, the advice that I would give them is the more of an expert you can become on the internal operations of the organization, the more success you will have. Sometimes it's not just about having the idea and executing the idea. It's about how do you get that idea, how do you make it thrive inside of the building? Because most often than not, when you're working on large brands like that, there's so many individuals along that gate checking process that you need someone that can actually be that stakeholder that can have the idea live through from idea to execution. Many times, a lot of agencies, they don't know the internal structuring or operations, and their ideas die because they don't know who the next gate check should be and how to get the idea to the next gate check.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the advice of
Good point. Anna, did you have anything to add to that from a client perspective? What you're saying?
No, pretty much he's right. One thing that I have learned, I have relationships also with Comcast, because we have VOD content with Veme Kids. What Marcus said is very important. You need to be able to know the internal structure, so you know who to approach and in when moment is exact moment to do it, because you don't want to get something done and then you don't know how they work and you don't know who to approach. So that is right on what he was saying, because like PepsiCo or any of these big companies, Comcast is a huge, huge, huge company, and you really need to know your way around it.
We want to go back to the earlier question about some of the companies who are doing it right. So Horacio, you work with a number of agencies, and you're probably seeing from bird's eye view those companies that are doing it right.
Well, there are lots and lots of companies that are doing it right, and we actually, one of the things that we're trying to do the last few years is honor those companies and highlight them. So we have come up with this award we call the Marketer of the Year, and it's certainly a way to recognizing companies who are doing it and doing it well at every level. So I'll give you a couple of quick examples of companies that I think they're doing it right in so many ways. Obviously, in the retail arena, Walmart. Walmart's doing it right. Walmart has actually gone ahead and restructured itself, to better deal with today's marketplace. McDonald's been doing it well for many, many years. And those are the big ones that we know, and I know there are many, many, many other more regional and local brands who are also starting to do it very well. And what I think is important for us is we continue to recognize those that are doing well. But I think, like we were saying earlier today, there's so many great case studies today, these days about things that work well. So I think, to me, not everybody's doing it well, and I think we have a long way to go. There's no question about that. But I think if we look at it today compared to 5, 7, 10 years ago, I think the number of companies that are doing well today is incredible compared to just 5 years ago. So that should give us a lot of hope. And I think that just is a signal to us as an industry that we have a lot. I mean, there is a lot ahead for us. We just need to make sure that we're smart about it, and we make sure that we do it right. And like I was saying earlier, I think even before we started, I think the ones who are doing it right, I think they're going to succeed. The ones who are not are trying to, well, we have this structure. I got to make it fit. Those might not be successful. But I think the golden age of our industry is coming, and I think for those who are well positioned and understand and are nimble and willing to change, I think the future is very bright.
And that leads me to the following question: is what is the future of PR and marketing integration? What do you all see as a future for it? Anna.
We are more than integrated than ever, and it's gonna keep happening, and it's not gonna go away, regardless, because all the technology now, we are like this. It's like now people they don't know the difference sometimes of what's marketing and what's PR, and the little line that says this is marketing, this is PR is so blurred that people just don't know anymore. So it's gonna keep happening, and it's gonna happen even more. That's what I think.
From a public relations standpoint, if you're only a PR agency, do you start doing media buying? What do you recommend for those agencies that are truly just for earned media? We don't even venture into advertising. But now with the whole blogosphere, we're paying bloggers to engage in the campaigns. It feels like PR folks who not touch marketing and advertising now have to know a little bit about it and actually execute. What are your thoughts on that? Like, yes, we just need to wake up and...
Well, to a certain extent, PR practitioners necessarily need to not necessarily become an expert, because that's why you're a PR expert. That's what you do. But at the end of the day, is knowing something else beyond your expertise never is going to hurt anybody. And at the end of the day, bloggers, like you were mentioning, are becoming so much more used by brands to be able to organically give that brand that name, that position in the audience, that PR practitioners needs to now extend beyond what is supposed to be PR in order to reach and keep growing and continue moving on, because otherwise we're going to just be packed to the back and other people is going to go forward and be successful.
Right, good. Marcus, what do you see?
There is something that I'd like to add. What I'd like to do is add on to what Anna's saying. I think, number one, yes, but I believe in the notion of hybridity. I think the future is about the hybridity of what you bring to the table. I'm not a media planner and buyer, and when clients come to us for that discipline, we farm that out. I bring in a subsea and I get somebody else to do it. However, that doesn't mean that I get to give up on being able to provide a POV, because my client's still going to come to me to validate whatever plan is coming in and whether or not strategically that makes sense. So I think everyone has to get more comfortable knowing that integration will continue to happen. You will need to have experts in the room, and at least you should at least be much more familiar and conscious of where your limits are. I don't think it's enough to say that, oh, I'm just going to hand it off and give it to someone else, nor is it that, oh, I'm just now going to become the next expert because I read a quick tip guide and I saw a YouTube video over how to buy media. I don't think that qualifies you as an expert, but I do think that you've got to become more familiar and much more comfortable with the idea that you're going to be in a room, and when you're in a room with people that are smarter than you, that's the right room. because you're not only going to be doing the right thing for your client, but you're also going to be growing your own capabilities as well. So I think that's the way to look at it, and I think people shouldn't be afraid of hybridity. I mean, I started out as a creative director. I started out in the creative department, but now I serve more as a strategic consultant to all of our clients. So clients come to us more for the strategic planning that we do more than they do the creative, so which is ironic.
Well, believe it or not, we are at the end of our program, so I just want to give a big round of applause to everyone who joined us today. And again, to learn more about HPRA, make sure you go to our website at HPRA-USA.org. Remember, the National Bravo Awards and early entry deadline is coming up next week. Make sure you get in your submissions to get recognition for your team's hard work, and we look forward to joining you on future Google Hangouts from HPRA. This will be living live on YouTube, on our HPRA USA YouTube channel, so you can always go back to it and take some of the key learnings we had today. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye.